You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, joined by Macon Gillespie from the Grove Report. And John, first of all, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you, man. But we'll start off with this. I did a show last Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was Thursday, about how Ole Miss got disrespected because LSU is currently a 2.5-point favorite over Ole Miss. Whenever you look at top 10 rankings lists by positions, Ole Miss outranks them on offense for everyone we've seen so far. LSU's defense a year ago was an absolute abomination to the point where they have not improved, and it couldn't have gotten that much better. So my question is for you, is Tiger Stadium just worth like 15 to 20 points now?
No, I definitely don't think so, and I don't think it will be for this Ole Miss team, the way the roster is made up too. I mean, yes, Tiger Stadium will always be a difficult place to play, but not to that level. And, you know, that line doesn't really make a lot of sense to me either. I do understand LSU may be getting some points in their favor there from Vegas because of home field advantage. But no, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, the defense for LSU last year, I think you and I talked not too long ago about how I went back and watched some of that Ole Miss LSU game from a year ago. And I had forgotten just how much of an abject disaster that defense was that night. And yeah, I don't see, just from my off-season perspective, I don't see 2.5 points in LSU's favor there.
Yeah, Harold Perkins should have gotten in the portal is what we're saying about LSU.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the logo on the side of the helmet. I always talk about, like, when Ole Miss plays Alabama, don't get beat by the logo, don't get beat by the logo. I think this odd is just based off of the logos whenever they looked at the game, LSU versus Ole Miss. That is the only way that I can make this make sense.
Yeah, and they saw that, okay, yes, it's at Tiger Stadium. I mean, that's, you know, which we know it's not going to be worth that much, but yeah.
Yeah, there was a time not too long ago when Ole Miss played pretty well in Tiger Stadium, and then the Matt Luke era started.
That's right. What was it? 08? Was 08 at LSU?
That was the Jevon Sneed 3 passes game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's the first time I remember Ole Miss winning in Tiger Stadium, like in my memory that I remember it happening. Yeah.
No, Ole Miss beat them in Tiger Stadium in either 2012, I think 2012 or 2013, because that was the game that Bo Wallace ran like a 6.7 40 down the field, but for some reason LSU fans couldn't catch him.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was absolutely amazing. And, you know, like Jeremiah Masoli, that bad Ole Miss team in 2010 almost pulled that game out. Masoli just almost won that by himself. Ole Miss played pretty well until, honestly, the Hugh Freeze probation or whatever, and that happened. Basically, whenever Leonard Fournette ran over Deontay Anderson like a freight train on the sideline, that ended Ole Miss playing well in Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, and that was in 2016, I think, is when that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, even an Ed Orgeron team, I'm pretty sure forced overtime in Tiger Stadium, unless I am misremembering that.
I was at that game, yeah.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not misremembering that. Yeah, so, I mean, they have a history of playing well there. You know, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and it really, really interesting stuff. Now, weird stuff always happens there. If something weird happens, it usually happens to Ole Miss and not to LSU. There was the 2002 game where Eli threw a swing pass that bounced off the head of the running back and got picked off and pick sixed. And LSU ended up winning that game. Some weird stuff can happen. And this can be a fun rivalry. I'm looking forward to it because it is special whenever Ole Miss is good. Whenever LSU has a chance to be completely riled up and give that game the attention it deserves, it gets special. And down there, it's going to be at night. Both teams are probably going to be 6-0. It'll be on ABC. It'll be insanely loud, earthquake game loud. Basically, the 2014 game, we're going to do that all over again.
Yeah, and that's probably a pretty good comparison. And I think that Tiger Stadium is worth a little bit, but it's not worth that much that I think Vegas is kind of putting on it. Um, but yeah, and two, I think both what kind of helps make the rivalry itself so special, or have it the potential to be special, is the cultures of both fan bases and kind of the area of the country. I don't know, I may be reading too much into that, but I think Oxford and then the Baton Rouge, New Orleans vicinity kind of makes for an interesting melting pot like that whenever those two fan bases get together. Uh, and when they're both at this level and able to compete for what used to be the SEC West, yeah, pretty fun stuff can happen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and especially the old people in the fan base. They do not like Ole Miss, and they will tell you they do not like Ole Miss. Now, young people like your age, John, they would tell you LSU doesn't like Alabama. That's the game.
Yeah,
That's the most important. But the older people, it is going to be all about Ole Miss. Now, if you look at the other games that came out on DraftKings, you had Oklahoma as a 6-point underdog to Ole Miss in Oxford. That makes sense. Ole Miss a
yeah,
6.5-point favorite on the road in Gainesville, which if you told me that was something that was going to happen when the piss and the miss happened, that Ole Miss was going to go down to Gainesville and be a touchdown favorite, and we would be surprised it was just a touchdown.
hmm
That'd kind of blow my mind. And then Ole Miss is an underdog to Georgia on the DraftKings by 7 points in Oxford. It's 5.5 on FanDuel. It's 7 on DraftKings. But that is the only Ole Miss game on FanDuel that's getting odds at the moment. Overall, you're going to look at the games that Ole Miss is favored in. Ole Miss is going to be favored in 10 out of 12, it looks like, in the regular season. They should be favored in 11 out of 12. And basically that Georgia game has a chance, I think, for Jackson Dart, that Georgia game has a chance to be what Archie Manning had against Tennessee, the Mule game. I think it has a chance to be really similar to that, to where Jackson Dart announces his arrival to the fan base in earnest. He's like, hey, I'm the GOAT. That is that game.
yeah. I think it can be. And looking at that line, I was actually thinking about that specific line not too long before I got on, and I understand. I fully get the 7 points there, and it kind of feels right to me. But looking at it too, I'm like, man, that's going to be a really, really interesting game when it rolls around. Because yes, I do think on paper Georgia is the better team, but it being in Oxford to me is the wild card there. And I mean, we'll talk about it whenever that game gets closer. But to me, that's going to be a really, really special environment if the season up to that point goes how both of those teams think it's going to go. That's going to be a playoff type atmosphere, I think.
Oh, 03
Uh,
LSU is what that game will be.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good comparison. Yeah.
Mm.
It's going to be that level of intensity in Vaught Hemingway that night. And, it's it I think this season has the opportunity to have a lot of those games if things go the way that a lot of people think it's going to go.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to all of this because it's going to be very much fun. I feel like I've earned this season. No matter how it finishes up, I feel like I've earned the season being an Ole Miss fan since 1976.
Well, and I think just for us, like on the beat too, like for those of us who have been around since I'll say I started covering Ole Miss with a student newspaper in 17 or 18. Man, we covered some bad teams then. I mean, and it was rough. And I think that now, for those of us who have been around that long, I think we've kind of earned this a little bit as well.
Yes. But fortunately, and this isn't making fun of the young men at all, but you never had to cover Lawrence Adams.
That's
You
true.
never
Yeah.
had to do that. You didn't have to worry about whether or not Ken Austin or Kelly Powell was going to be the starting quarterback against Arkansas. You didn't know, you didn't wonder if Mark Young was going to be able to play against Alabama. Stuff like that. These are heady questions that young child Steve had to go through. But like I said, now we figured it out. We're having conversations like, is Jackson Dart the GOAT? Hey, are we a top 5 unit at wide receiver, running back in the offense? Just absolutely unbelievable stuff that even during talking season made no sense that could ever happen before, but it's happening now.
Yeah, and I mean, I always go back to that night in Starkville in that press box in 19 when it felt to me like it was the death nail of the program, essentially, which I mean, in a way, it kind of was. I mean, it brought Lane Kiffin about, but it was the death nail for that era of the program for sure. And for the turnaround that has happened in what almost 5 years now is, I mean, it's astronomical. I mean, it's from where that team was and the discombobulation, if I can pull out that long word, of the program at that time, which some was self-induced and some obviously was the probation stuff coming off of that. But um, it's phenomenal for this team to be a top 10 team going into 2024, and I think they should be a top 5 team.
Yeah, and it's just nuts to think about, and it should be a lot of fun. Now, before we take the break and go into it, I do want to say baseball put us out of our misery, right?
Yeah, and for those of us who were in the box on Wednesday night, I mean,
T's and P's.
it was a miserable experience. I mean, and it not just the baseball itself. I mean, which wasn't a great product, but I mean, it was just a long night, and I mean, it does kind of feel like that was kind of it with A&M coming to town. I guess as we're recording this, I mean, they'll be coming to town this weekend.
Yeah, the series will be over by the time this
By the
video
time
goes free.
this airs, yeah. So, but it feels like, yeah, that was kind of the fat lady singing there, so to speak. I mean, you're up 7-3 in the going into the 8th inning, I believe it was. You blow that lead, and then you somehow manage to tie it in the bottom of the ninth, I think, without recording a hit. Or no, they did record a hit, but the RBI was not a hit. And then no scoring for like 4 straight innings. Horrible sequence. Yeah, it was not a good night for the program, and not a good night for those of us who had to cover it as well.
I will say this: Andrew Fisher is knocking the cover off the ball. He is
Hmm.
quiet. He is quietly potentially the best hitter that Ole Miss has had potentially ever.
Yeah, he's really good at the plate. Defensively is another story.
No,
Uh,
yeah,
but
he should
he
be
is really,
DHing.
yeah. I mean, you take that trade right now. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess. I mean, you have to have a positive here somewhere. But uh, yeah, I mean, I think that he is really good at the plate. His defense leaves obviously some stuff to be desired. But if you're gonna take a bright spot away from the season right now, it's that.
Yeah, he's got like 23 home runs. He's got to be getting close to what Elko did, and he still
Yeah.
has games to go.
I need to look at that number actually. That makes me curious on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's at like 23 home runs, and
Hmm.
Ole Miss as a program hasn't hit many more than that. Anybody, so we'll see exactly what's going on there. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. When we come back, we are going to get John's top 5 list. Everybody loves the top 5. Everybody loves to debate them. We're going to get John's right after this, as soon as I bring in my reader. All right. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have views from all the seats in the venue. They have the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection. That's in case Morgan Wallen's coming back into town. And job loss protection as well. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, so John, whenever this video goes free, you're the last person that's going to get to do this. So we're going to have the top fives for everybody. You're going to close it out. The way this works, we go from 5 to 1. I find out who your top five is, and if you leave anybody notable out, we will do that in honorable mention section at the end. So the top 5 Ole Miss quarterbacks, number 5.
Okay. I will preface this by saying I have a little bit of recency bias here. And I feel almost wrong putting this name at 5. But I am going Chad Kelly at 5. Obviously, he had a really great career at Ole Miss, won a Sugar Bowl, things of that nature. And the recency bias comes in the spots ahead of him. I really struggled with 5 and 4, figuring out who I was going to put there. But I did slot Kelly at 5.
All right, number 4.
Matt Corral. I think, obviously, he didn't win a Sugar Bowl, but I think it says a lot about the career he had, that he was able to have it coming off of the NCAA debacle and the whole John Rice Plumlee debate that happened then, all those kind of things. He fought through a lot to have as successful a career as he did. So, yeah, I have him at number 4.
Number 3.
Jackson Dart. I think, if you and I have talked about it, but I think he has a chance to move up 2 spots this year. We'll see what happens, but having that 11-win season under his belt, the most wins in a single season in program history, and having won a New Year's Six Bowl, is definitely deserving of the number 3 spot, I believe.
The floor for Jackson Dart to be the GOAT for like statue level is if Ole Miss hosts a playoff game. Ole Miss hosting Notre Dame or Clemson or whoever it is on Bald Hemingway on December 15th or whatever that date is, Jackson Dart will be the greatest of all time quarterback, because it looks like he's going to own every record with the exception of passing touchdowns as well.
I agree. Yeah.
So we'll see exactly how that goes. Number 2.
Archie. I'm going Archie Manning at number 2. I kind of struggle here a little bit because of the difference in eras, but the impact that he has made on the culture of the school and just how productive he was during his career, I think warrants him the number 2 spot. I think Archie's name is synonymous with Ole Miss, essentially. Obviously, the speed limit being what it is on campus is a big part of that. But whenever people think Archie Manning, they automatically think Ole Miss, and he's the one that started the Manning family legacy there. So, yeah, I have him at 2.
Yeah, and Archie Manning is probably the only quarterback from the Johnny Vaught era that could consistently play modern football. I have no doubt that in the spread offense era, Archie Manning would star.
Yeah, I agree with his skill set. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Number 1.
Eli. I went Eli here, and I don't know if it's fully fair why I put him where I did, because part of it has to do with his NFL career and what happened after he left Ole Miss, how much notoriety he's brought to Ole Miss through his NFL career, but also what he did while he was in Oxford was huge. Okay, he wasn't on very great football teams, honestly, but he did get to a 10-win season in 2003, win what later became a New Year's Six Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. I think, and obviously, they wound up honoring him on campus as well with some 10-mile-per-hour speed limit. So his number's retired, all those kind of things. I think that he, being the modern Manning, warrants the number one spot right now.
So when they retire Jackson Dart's number, what is going to be speed limit 2? Where are they going to put the 2-mile-an-hour speed limit signs?
They will probably have to. Well, whenever they hopefully
the walking track, maybe.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, or put it up on the Walk of Champions, even a 2 mile per hour. You can't walk any faster than 2 miles per hour.
That would be awesome if they put a speed limit 2 sign on the Walk of Champions. That actually is a good idea. We need to somehow let Keith Carter know, because if Jackson Dart does what we think he's going to do, we need to get credit for this idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't even necessarily want royalties. I just want credit. Like that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, maybe just put on the bottom of the sign, idea by John Macon Gillespie and Stephen Willis.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Just something that the generations in the future can read and be like, oh, I wonder who those guys are.
So the honorable mentions, the ones that got left off, obviously Bo Wallace did not make your list.
Mm-hmm. I actually probably would have had him at 6, I think.
Romero Miller did not make your list.
He was probably 7.
John Forcade did not make your list. Probably because you don't remember John Forcade.
I don't remember. No, I mean I am aware, but no, I don't remember. No.
Yeah, he's gonna be helping out the site with some analyst stuff in the fall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we got some Ole Miss quarterback talking some quarterback.
Well, how about that? Yeah, but I do obviously I do remember Romero. Obviously, very very talented, from North Mississippi actually, and Bo Wallace. I couldn't put him over Chad Kelly, although he did beat Alabama, which Kelly did too. But Bo Wallace's day against Alabama in 2014 got him close to my top 5. But I just couldn't put it over.
It's not fair because Bo was injured in that Peach Bowl. He was not the same guy, but him losing that Peach Bowl the way he did, that honestly causes him to lose most of the tiebreakers with the quarterbacks that are all close.
Yeah, and I mean, he was even, if I remember correctly, he was even injured in that Egg Bowl too. For much of the season, I guess. But I remember him specifically being hobbled at that Egg Bowl too.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is that was by far the best football team that Mississippi State has ever had. I mean, it's not even close. And they just came into Oxford with a chance to go to the playoff and just got railed on by an injured Bo Wallace and like 160-pound Jalen Walton going 90 yards for a touch. Yeah, that was a fun day. That was an Egg Bowl on Saturday, by the way.
It was. Yeah, it was on CBS, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of those things. I'm beginning to wonder. I thought that this year it was going to be the Texas and Texas A&M game on Thanksgiving. I'm starting to think it might be Ole Miss and State on Thanksgiving again.
Yeah, part of me kind of thinks that too. I think some. I mean, obviously the NFL is going to take a lot of national attention on Thanksgiving, but for those who, I think the perception of the Egg Bowl is that it's wacky. A lot of weird stuff can happen. So I think that kind of lends it to a little bit of, hey, maybe put it on Thanksgiving. But, maybe hopefully here before too long, that will change.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. John Macon Gillespie, I just got a text message from Brad Logan from Inside the Rebels, and he wants to get in this top 5 quarterback debate. So I'm going to have to schedule an interview with him tomorrow probably.
That'll be fine. Let him do it. I'm curious to see how ours stack up. We're from the same area. So
yeah, it should be pretty good. But anyway, John, take care. If you need anything, let me know, bud.
All right. Appreciate you, Stephen. Thank you.